Hello everyone and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It's Thursday the 29th of November. I hope you're all doing well and surviving Storm Diana, as I think it's known, that's sweeping through the UK with the rain at the moment, and that you've got some time this Thursday afternoon as the light fades to settle back into and delve into the ancient world with me for the next half hour. Thank you as always for your fantastic questions that have been coming in through the Facebook page through the week. Do keep them coming, Michael. So it's www.facebook.com/Michael Scott Academic, or you can email your questions direct to michaelscottacademic@gmail.com. Hello, Linda. How are you doing? Great to see you guys can tune in to join me for the live Q&A this week. It's a pleasure to have you with us. It's been a busy week here. We've been teaching our ancient global history course for the undergrads at Warwick University. We're on week 9 of term, so one more week to go, as well as been thinking about lots of other exciting opportunities and courses and different things coming up, as well as doing an interview for Radio Warwick, the radio station run by the university students. So that was great fun as well last night. That'll be going live in a couple of weeks. And I've got some announcements for you about lectures coming up. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. So glad you could join us. Thanks so much. But we're going to kick off quickly, and I'm going to start this time from the back of the list of questions to make sure that the people at the end of the list don't get left out. And we're going to start with a question that I've been meaning to get to for a couple of weeks, which is from Angela Ryder, which was talking about the Ancient Invisible Cities series that we filmed it was during the course of the previous year and was shown in September and October time. And we're talking about the Athens episode, and you can still catch these on BBC iPlayer because they've decided to keep them available for 6 months. So they're still available for you to watch in all their glory. And Angela's asking about the Athens episode and the virtual reality world at the end, where we delve into the Erechtheion, one of the temples on the Acropolis in Athens, and we stand in the caryatid porch. And at that point in the virtual reality scene, I seemingly step up on to the level of the porch. And Angela's question is, how was that achieved if we were actually sitting in a green screen studio, as we were filming? How did I manage to actually move up onto a porch level in the virtual reality world? And I'm very happy to tell you, it was both very high-tech and very low-tech, because there we were in this green screen studio, and they said, right, you're going to step up onto the porch. And I said, how are we going to do this? Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Greetings. Thanks so much for tuning in from Italy and from everywhere. How are we going to do this? And they plonked a very low-tech, green-painted wooden box on the floor. But the high-tech stuff came in that they had to align where this box was in the green screen studio exactly with where the porch was going to be in the virtual world. Once that was done, I had a small question, which was when I put on my virtual reality goggles, I could see the virtual world, but I had no clue where the box was in the real world. And I could see myself trying to step up onto this thing and actually falling off it completely. So we had to navigate and sort of work out a way so that I'd sort of know where the box was in terms of where the porch was, but the limits of the box as well. It wasn't as wide as the porch. And then I stepped up onto the box in the real world, in the green screen studio, and thus was able to step up onto the porch in the virtual reality world. So it was a great, great scene, an amazing thing achieved by both high-tech and very low-tech, and a bit of me trying to make sure that I didn't fall over in the meantime. So thank you very much indeed for that question. A little bit of a behind-the-scenes interest in the filming of Ancient Invisible Cities. Hello, everyone. So glad that you could join this live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. Lovely that you could be with us. So we had another great question that came in a little while ago that I'd been meaning to get to, which is from Paul Mangan. And this is, who do you think is the most undervalued person from the ancient world? I think this is a great question. Who is the most undervalued person from the ancient world? Well, I mean, how to pick just one person? And I guess also it kind of, what do we mean by undervalued? Do we think that they never got talked about enough in the surviving sources? Do we think that the sources that did talk about them gave them a rather unfair rep and were unfairly harsh on them, and we'd want to reevaluate them today? For me, I'd like to talk about the people, or kind of mention the people who don't get talked talked enough about in the sources, but without whom much of the material from the ancient world, much of the great achievements from the ancient world wouldn't be possible. And this again was brought home to me when we were filming Athens' Ancient Invisible City, and we were there deep in the mines, the Laurian silver mines of Athens, and we were crawling through these tiny, tiny tunnels. Hello, Hypatia. A good one from Rob. Hypatia, yes, of course. In fact, she's going to come up in an answer to another question I want to bring up. But Hypatia, the 4th, 5th century AD, female philosopher in Alexandria, subject of the film Agora, if any of you have seen it. I don't know whether you guys have seen that film. But yes, kind of, there you go, a fantastically interesting philosopher who suffered a terrible fate, sort of being stoned to death, supposedly by the mob, and kind of doesn't get her due credit for her importance. But the people I'd like to bring onto the table are the slaves who worked in the silver mines in Laurion in ancient Athens. The job of working in the silver mines was known as pretty much the worst job that a slave could do. So even of all the jobs that slaves did, this was the worst. It was seen to be the hardest. And there they were, deep in these dark tunnels, lit only by these flickering, smutty oil lamps, doing backbreaking work, not just adults, but also children. And what they were doing was excavating the silver that then went on to give Athens the financial muscle and power to build its fleets, to run its democracy, and to be such a powerful player in the ancient world. So for me, kind of in talking about undervalued people from the ancient world, let's think about the slaves, but particularly in relation to ancient Greek history and ancient Athenian history, let's think about those poor slaves who had to work in the Laurian mines doing the worst of the worst jobs. Hello, Laurie, so glad that you get to watch live. Thank you so much for tuning in live. It's great that you could join us. So who is your most undervalued person from the ancient world that you would like either to have heard more about, you wish the ancients had talked more about them, or indeed they did talk about them, but you think they got a bad rep and deserve to be understood more? Hello from Sydney, Australia. It's 3 a.m. Wow. It's about probably as dark with you as it is here. Kind of, it's just gone 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, and it's almost going pitch black. But thank you so much for waking up in the middle of the night over in Australia. I hope at least you get a chance for a lie-in after you go back to bed. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Red Trooper. Speaking of ancient Egypt, your husband's hooked onto the new Assassin's Creed. Absolutely, enjoying those fantastic video games that are so brilliantly lifelike. And we were talking about this in a Talk Masters seminar in Warwick just the other day, about how video games relating to the ancient world are often many young people's first experience of the ancient world now in one way or t'other. Before that, that's where they get hooked and where their interest comes from, that then leads them on to want to explore more. So it's fantastic that such incredible worlds are being brought to life and sparking people's interests and enjoyment. Kind of Caesar's wine tasters as undervalued people of the ancient world. Yeah, that was kind of not a great job, was it? If you had to be one of the food tasters for the Roman emperors, perhaps, kind of sort of something. The Tiro, yes, of course. Without Tiro, much of Cicero's work would be missing. The slave of Cicero, who developed an amazing shorthand and was able to write down Cicero's speeches in almost live as they were being given. Yes, absolutely. These are the people to whom so much of what we know about the ancient world should be owed. And we have to kind of another coming in from Melbourne, Australia. Hello, Angela. How are you doing? Oh, so glad that you could join us on this live Q&A. Great answers to who's the most undervalued person from the ancient world. Keep them coming. This is absolutely brilliant. And we can add into this another question that I wanted to bring up, which we had, where we got it from, Latifa Walker, who has been asking, in our opinion, in my opinion, in your opinion, which female figure of the ancient world should we know about and why? So, link those two questions. We have a separate question of who do you think are the most undervalued people, and we've already had an answer, which also is a female figure, Hypatia, the philosopher from the 4th, 5th century, coming in. In your opinion, which female figure of the ancient world should we know about and why? Do you have a favourite female figure from the ancient world and that we should know about and why? Do let us know. For me, I mean, there's just so many to choose from, and I think it also depends on which kind of arena of life that you're particularly interested in. So my research background has often thought about Greek religion and Greek sanctuaries, and has particularly thought about Delphi. And there you're constantly confronted by the importance of a female figure, the Pythian priestess, the oracular priestess, who we would desperately like to know more about the women who fulfilled this role over nearly 1,000 years of oracular responses. And we know that at certain times there was not just one or two, but three possible kind of Pythian priestesses that could be consulted at really busy times. Circe, great one. Yes, thank you. So great answer, Circe. We could have kind of, who's coming in from Rob? Kind of, the first name writer and princess as well as priestess. Absolutely. Kind of, wow. Great answers coming in. I like it. The Pythian priestess for me, kind of, we know the names of maybe 3 or 4 of them, but we'd love to know more. We know very little about how they were chosen. We know very little about what they did outside of the consultation days, and yet coming from their lips were the words and ideas that often changed the course of Greek history. So Pythian priestess would be one. But if we move into myth, kind of the great women of myth, we talked about Circe. What about Penthesilea, the queen of the Amazons, right? Kind of one of the most powerful kind of women, leading a tribe of women who kind of struck fear into the hearts of Greeks across the world. That Penthesilea finally kind of battling away against the Greek heroes. Hello, Alison, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining in the live Q&A. If we go into Greek drama, great female kind of heroines and major figures of Greek tragedy. You could think about Antigone, think about Medea, kind of one of the key characters that I remember from one of my first kind of engagements with ancient Greek literature. Medea is a character that is just so timeless and so incredibly modern as a woman standing up for her rights, and doing things that, I don't think many of us would consider going to those lengths today, but absolutely kind of there we have it. That's what she chose to do, and she confronts us with that choice and asks us to judge her, and is then seen at the end of the play, obviously, in Euripides and Medea, on that chariot of the gods being taken away and taken safely. Hello, Anthea. Hello, Aspasia. Yes, Rob, absolutely as well. Kind of talking about the kind of more the real world politics and inspirational characters within the Athenian model. Good afternoon, video. Lovely to see you. So glad that you could join in. Talking about another real world character that I think, female character that we should all know about, Cynisca. So this is the sister of the king of Sparta, who in 396 was the first woman to win an event at the Olympic Games, because women were not allowed to compete in the Olympic Games, and she sort of broke the rules and entered a chariot. Now, she entered the chariot. They were her horses that were in the chariot racing competition. The chariot itself was actually driven by a male charioteer, but it was actually the people who owned the horses who were considered to be the winners of the event if their horses and their chariot won. So Cynisca, 396, and then again, and 392, kind of, and 390, kind of won again, kind of in the next Olympic Games, and she set up a memorial to her victories at Olympia. She had an inscription, a text: "I declare myself the only woman in all of Hellas to have won at the Olympic Games." Kind of a fantastic slight to all the men out there going, you think women can't do this? We can. I've just shown you kind of what women can do. Hello, Alison. Hello, Berenice. Yes, absolutely. Of course, another absolutely crucial kind of role. Alexander, hi, Prof. How are you doing? Kind of, how can we find more about this, Nathan? Oh, Nathan, yeah, tell us more. Yeah, it'd be great if you can show us some links as well as you're coming up with the names and ideas. That would be fantastic. And if you share the links now over the live Facebook, we can also post those on the Facebook page afterwards. Hypatia, we've talked about as well, the 4th and 5th century philosopher. Absolutely important. So I think there are tons of women that we need to be talking about and thinking about from the ancient world across all of those ranges of, we've talked about the gods, we've talked about myth, we've talked about religion, we've talked about real world culture, we've talked about real world politics, we've talked about philosophy. Ashoka's daughter, wow, okay, we're moving out of just the ancient Greek world where we've been. Obviously, yes, of course, we need to think about the Roman world, we need to think about all the other great ancient civilizations. So we could move over into China, for instance, and we could think about some of the key, incredible female empresses there, like who succeeded the first Han Emperor, kind of as well, kind of a great kind of incredibly powerful women who managed to hold the unified China together under their realm, while they also brought their children up to age to be able to rule finally in their stead. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Kind of such great important figures, so that we we could list them. Let's have a longer list, and we'll list them all on the Facebook page. But we better stop and move on now, because we're already running out of time. Thank you so much for that question, Latifah. Great answers coming in as well. Let's take a moment to talk about kind of classics in the news, because there's been some fantastic finds that have been coming out through this week. So from the Archaeological Institute of America in China, there's been the ruins of a massive walled city from the site of Shimao in northern China are revising ancient China history. So they thought this was part of the Great Wall, but now they've realized it's an enormous prehistoric complex in such a peripheral region that was flourishing around the 2000 BC mark. So absolutely fantastic. This would make it the largest known settlement of this time in China, which is great. Can't wait to hear more about that, including finds like a 230-foot tall stepped pyramid. Seems to be used as a kind of residential palace for local rulers. So we look forward to hearing more about that. It's going to rewrite the history of the early dynasties of China, which is fantastic. Just recently, I posted this on the Twitter, kind of at @ProfMCScott on the Twitter feed, and we'll post it over on the Facebook page as well. But we've seen the tombstone of a 12-year-old Roman girl has been found in Slovenia underwater. We've found 8 more mummies. I say we, this is the royal we, kind of as a collective of all our endeavours across the world. 8 mummies, intact mummies in their limestone sarcophagi have been found right near the Great Pyramid at Giza. So that's going to be fantastic to see what comes out as they are being kind of investigated. Hello from Tel Aviv. Hello. Thank you so much for tuning in. Absolutely more great names coming in as important female characters from across the ancient world that we need to know more about. Fantastic. Keep the list coming. And we've also had in Lecce in Italy, this was particularly poignant. I think they've uncovered a tomb from the 4th, 3rd centuries BCE, which is full of the bones of children. And also children's toys, children's bottles and water beakers and things like this. Kind of absolutely amazing find to see, completely undisturbed and in touch. So kind of, again, we want to hear more about that as it's studied. So all the links to those will be on the Facebook page. And then in terms of what's on, classics in the news, there's lots of things to be telling you about. So St Mary's College in Liverpool is going to be doing a performance of the Trojan Women. We talked a little bit about this play in weeks past, kind of an incredibly emotional play that's had me in tears before now, as we sort of see these women of Troy after the fall of Troy to the Greeks, and they are having to deal with the fact that their lives are now going to be one of slavery as they're passed off and sent around and dispersed around the Greek world. And we also see the son of Hector being thrown from the battlements so that he can't grow up to become an enemy to the Greeks. That's being performed at St Mary's College, Liverpool on the 27th and 28th of February 2019. So we're sharing that. It's going to be set in Syria. In the modern day, with an original script, a cast of 30 actors, musicians and dancers aged 14 to 19, so it's a great young cast. Looking forward to bringing the visceral play to life, and again we'll be sharing the link to where you can find out more about that play on the Facebook page. So if you're in the Liverpool area, that's definitely something to do. Our own play at Warwick Classics, Frogs, Aristophanes' Frogs, which is also the set text thinking about classical civilization, GCSE and A-level. Aristophanes' Frogs, the Warwick Classics, undergraduate Warwick Classics Society, are going to be performing the Frogs in a public performance on the 24th of January 2019 at the Warwick Arts Centre, and the tickets for that will be going live in the next day or two. So if you have a look at the Warwick Arts Centre website, you'll be able to get some tickets for that. And before the performance on the 24th, there's going to be a discussion about the play between a series of invited researchers and the play director as well. So that's going to be absolutely fantastic, and we can't wait for you to come and see that. And then a couple of announcements from me about lectures. As I promised, there were going to be some lectures of mine that I was going to announce this week. So the first off is the 12th of February 2019, and this is for those of you in London. Both of these lectures are going to be in London. The first on the 12th of February is with the Society for the Promotion of Hellenic Studies and the Anglo-Hellenic League, and that's going to be taking place at the Hellenic Centre in Paddington area in London. And I'm going to be talking about we are going where? TV classics in film and in reality. So if you are interested about that lecture, more of that can be found if you have a look at the Anglo-Hellenic League Twitter feed, but also on my website in the next week or so. There's going to be an announcement about it under the public lectures page. So that's michaelscottweb.com. And if you want to reserve tickets for that, then you email info@anglo-hellenicleague.org. So that's the 12th of February. And then thinking ahead to the 9th of May 2019, again in London, as part of the Warwick in London department. Warwick has a campus at the Knowledge Centre, the King's Cross St Pancras, just near the Google HQ. I'm going to be doing a public lecture there that's open to all as part of the Warwick in London series. And again, you can find the link to that on my Twitter feed @ProfMCScott. It'll be on my website in the next week or so if you want to book a ticket. Do please come along. So that would be fantastic. Will videos be uploaded? I am not sure. I think the Warwick in London will be turned into a video. I'll have to ask about the Society for Promotion of Hellenic Studies and Anglo-Hellenic League lecture. But there will be a video of another lecture that I'll be announcing and inviting you all to next week. So kind of hold on to your hats if you can't make either of those in London. And the lecture I'm going to be announcing next week is not going to be in London. So kind of keep attuned for that when you come in next week. Kind of their thing. Oh, they're already Claire. Thank you so much. Brilliant, Claire. A huge round of applause can I just offer, and thanks to Claire Robson, who does a brilliant job in keeping the FB page, Facebook page up to date, and to responding to many of you on text and getting everything ready for these Q&As. Thank you so much, Claire. I couldn't manage without you. And to everyone who's been in touch, I think you'll agree Claire does an absolutely fantastic job. So thank you. And indeed, so yeah, we've got the 12th of February and the 9th of May. And hopefully I'll be able to see some of you at that, or indeed at the lecture event that I'll be announcing next week. So we've got time for a few more questions. Hang on a sec, where am I? Here we are. Kind of questions that have come in specifically for this week. Great one from Chris Capsalis, who's asking, did the ancient peoples celebrate a Thanksgiving holiday? Of course, we've got everyone to the US. It's not too late to say happy Thanksgiving. I hope you had a great weekend last weekend and didn't eat too much pumpkin pie and turkey. Kind of getting quite jealous over here in the UK, kind of hoping to start digging into all the Christmas festivities now that we're past Thanksgiving. And looking forward to Christmas. Not too long to go. I think everyone's going to start playing Christmas music in the next couple of days, aren't they? Saturday the 1st of December. I think that's when you can start playing the Christmas music loud. I'm looking forward to that. But Chris's question: did the ancient peoples celebrate a Thanksgiving holiday? It's a great question. So here, Thanksgiving is about, originally it's about the blessing of the harvest. Hi, Claire. Thank you again, Claire, for everything. So the Thanksgiving holiday is about the blessings of the harvest. And there were lots of religious festivals in the ancient world, in the ancient Greek world, but we could also think about the Roman world. We could think about other civilizations across the global map that thought about and gave thanks for the return of the harvest each year as such an essential part of ensuring and making sure that their communities could continue. In the ancient Greek world, we would be thinking about the goddess Demeter, who was responsible for the seasons, and of course the mythical story behind the seasons in the ancient Greek world is that her daughter Persephone, who was stolen away from her down to the underworld to be married to Hades, was allowed back up to join Demeter for part of the year eventually, but then had to go back down to spend part of the year with Hades. And so the part of the year when Persephone and Demeter were together was the spring and the summer, and then when she went away, the autumn and the winter, and that was kind of explained the cyclical nature of the harvest. But there were festivals particularly for women, like the Thesmophoria, which was a female-only festival that was related to the harvest. There were particularly important festivals of Demeter that were linked to mystery cults, so like the mystery cult of Eleusis, the sanctuary of Eleusis, which kind of citizens of Athens loved to be initiated into over a series of a couple of extraordinary days. But that's not kind of around the same time, wouldn't happen at the same time of the year as Thanksgiving, or indeed moving into Christmas time. But of course the Romans had the Saturnalia, which would have been happening around the 17th of December. And this is more a a link, because it's about a party time that's happening around this time of year that kind of links into our Thanksgiving and Christmas. So the Saturnalia, in honor of the god Saturn, this was a party festival in Rome where everything was turned on its head. All norms sort of went out the window, and they loved loved subverting all the kind of usual ways in which things were done. So, for instance, kind of slaves who would normally be serving their masters during the Saturnalia, masters actually served their slaves, and there were kind of great feasts, and there was a kind of master of frivolities appointed, a master of the Saturnalia, and it was a great kind of big Roman party where everything was possible and all the normal rules went out the window. Of course, kind of that idea of a festival where you have lots of things going out the window and everything being overturned only reinforces the fact that kind of when the festival ends, everything goes back to as it should be, to the normal way of things. So almost that kind of overturning things in the context of a festival means that it reinforces how things should be normally. Yeah, the Lupercalia as well for health and fertility. Great one, Rob. Yeah, a kind of absolutely great idea. Lots and lots of festivals that are dedicated to the essential idea of the cyclical nature of life, that if that doesn't happen, kind of if there isn't that ability of the return of the harvest, a bountiful harvest, then that kind of spells huge trouble for the communities. Or if we were in Egypt, for instance, it would be linked to the annual flooding of the Nile, an incredibly important moment to ensure that the harvests would be able to grow. And indeed, in ancient Egypt, kind of the power of the pharaoh was linked almost to his ability to bring the annual floods of the Nile, and kind of that was partly his responsibility, given his semi-divine kind of status, to be able to convince the gods each year to flood the Nile and ensure that the communities could survive. So a really interesting question, Chris. Thank you very much for that. In terms of how can we overlap between the ancient and the modern with Thanksgiving? We've got a question from Marco Foti, who's asking about Constantinople. Why did Constantine the Great move the capital of the Roman Empire to the ancient Greek colony of Byzantium and rename it Constantinople? And as a result, in Marco's words, cause hatred between Constantinople and the Roman Empire? Well, this is a really interesting moment in Roman history. So we're talking in the early 4th century AD. The Emperor Constantine comes to power. And of course, when he first comes to a role of responsibility and power in the Roman Empire, he's not the emperor of the whole of the Roman Empire, because the Roman Empire has actually been split, or rather the rulership of the Roman Empire has been split into this series of senior and junior emperors who each have sort of responsibility for a bit of it. Because emperors prior to this, to the split of the Roman Empire under Diocletian, had found it almost impossible to move across its great width and keep firm control of it. Now, Constantine had spent quite a few of his early years then conquering back across and taking on his other co-ruling emperors in battle. Kind of think of Milvian Bridge, Battle of Milvian Bridge, kind of moving into Rome, and then, of course, sweeping east. And he now finally emerges as sole ruler again of a united Roman Empire. And he takes, I think, a rather canny look at that empire and sees that it is a changed beast. And he needs, if he's going to be a sole ruler of this new united empire, he needs to show a kind of a new foundation, a new place from which to rule, which isn't steeped in some of the difficult history of Rome's past, that isn't home to an incredibly difficult and much more traditional, old-fashioned, unwilling to change aristocratic group, and in which he can mould a new image of the Roman world, which takes into account not just the different cultural backgrounds, geographical backgrounds, but also increasingly the different religious backgrounds of the Roman Empire. So many of you will be familiar with the idea that of the persecutions of the Christians that had been commonplace within the Roman Empire over the previous 50 years. Constantine, one of his early things and ideas is the Edict of Toleration. So he's saying, look, I'm not interested in what you do as long as kind of we can all just move beyond that and get on about being Roman citizens and kind of join together to survive as a Roman Empire. And he moves forward with that, although he doesn't officially convert the Roman Empire to Christianity. That doesn't happen until the Emperor Theodosius at the very end of the 4th century CE, 380 CE. But what he does is start to incorporate Christian ideas into his new city, Constantinople, and Christian traditions, so that Christians can equally get behind this Roman world as it's reunited. So Constantinople, a fresh start in Constantinople, as it was inaugurated in 330 AD, 330 CE, allows Constantine to offer a new image of what Rome and the Roman Empire looks like, a new micro image of the complexities and identities of the Roman world, that he doesn't have to do that amongst all the sniping of the old traditional aristocracies. And equally importantly, moving that capital eastwards is putting him, the Roman Emperor, and its capital much closer to the frontiers of the Roman Empire in the east, and the troublesome frontiers, and where really Roman emperors have to focus a lot of their attention. That's where they have to be on the ball, and Rome is frankly just too far away from the action. But the Roman Empire continues with this sort of dual capital, if you like, Rome and Constantinople, for quite some time, until the end of the 4th century and early 5th century, when Rome is then sacked. And really Constantinople emerges as the sole capital of the Roman Empire moving forward, and will then, of course, continue as the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire when the Western Roman Empire falls, and morph into the capital of the Byzantine Empire, lasting for centuries to come. So, great. Thank you so much indeed. That was a long answer to the question, but Marco, thank you very much indeed for that question. Thank you all for joining us for this half hour. We've had a request as to whether we can make this an hour rather than just a half an hour, but we'll see how that goes. If you have some thoughts on that, please do let us know on the Facebook page. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you again next week, next Thursday, the 6th of December. Looking forward to seeing you at 4 o'clock UK time as ever. Thank you so much for tuning in from all over the world. If you're in Australia, I hope you get back to sleep and that you get a lie-in the morning. Thank you so much for being part of this live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. Have a fantastic end of the week and weekend, and we will see you all again next week. Take care.